Hi, everyone. Welcome to Voices of West Windsor. I have with me this week Melissa Hager, who is the head of Hunger Packing in West Windsor. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And I guess I consider myself an organizer of the group.
An organizer. Okay, great. So just jumping right into it, the first question that I have for you is, what does West Windsor mean for you, to you?
So West Windsor is a really nice place to live and a great place to have brought up my family. And it was a crossroads of where my husband and I were going to be working. So it worked out really nicely.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything that in West Windsor that you see as making it unique?
So what I think is unique is when I try and tell people where I live, no matter where I am in the world, I say, well, this is where the Martians landed in War of the Worlds. And people go, oh, okay. And who could forget Grover's Mill? So, yeah.
I mean, it's very timely. We're at that week now. So you mentioned to me before that you've been here for 30 something years. Where do you see yourself in that community? And do you think it's actually, changed over time? I'm sure certainly with Hunger Packing, there might be something there, but.
So, for most of the time that I've lived here, I was working full time and bringing up children. Mm-hmm. I was a soccer coach. I was involved in a lot of other activities with my children. So for me, the town was a very nice place to bring up my children. Mm-hmm. The schools were great. People were very community oriented. So I liked that a lot. Other than that I'm not sure.
That's okay. That's okay. And do you think, someone raising kids in the area and being here for the length of time that you have, is there anything that you think West Windsor can improve regarding, anything really?
Well, I think that one of the concerns that I had for a long time was that our council did not really work well together. And when that changed, I think that there's a lot more camaraderie. I think there are a lot more social gatherings. I think that the creation of the community park and the pool really helped the community a lot. So I think that when I first moved here, there weren't those facilities, and now there are. It really makes a difference. So that part of it, I've seen change in a really, really positive way. What I do see a lack of is some social service support. And one of the reasons that I got involved in Hunger Packing is that our town, we are sandwiched between other areas with a lot of need, be it Trenton and Princeton and Hightstown, and people don't realize the need for social services here. And what I would really like to see is a mobile food pantry. So.
Actually, interestingly enough, we used to have a mobile library in the 70s and 60s. So there's somewhat of a model for that. But that's a very interesting thought, actually. I hadn't personally considered that before. Is there? Now you're involved with Hunger Packing, but is there someone in town that has inspired you?
Looking back, there are two people who I think are so inspirational to this town. Mm-hmm. And one of the people who I just am always in awe of her is Jatama, who is head of the Gratitude and Abundance group. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've spoken to her. She is just one of the most inspiring women I have ever met in this really understated way. And no matter when I talk to her, I always come away feeling much better. And she is just so supportive of what anyone is doing. And so she's someone who's really, I find really helpful to me when I talk to her. And the other person who is very understated, but is really help the community a lot, and that's Martin Whitfield at the Windsor Athletic Club. And when we started the Send Hunger Packing, he was the one person in town who let us use his facilities for fundraisers. I'm also on the Human Relations Council, and we really were able to use the facility to do some really special programs for Martin Luther King Day. So he, out of many people in this town, is just incredibly supportive of what's going on.
No, I've actually heard that about him from other people too. So that's nice to hear.
You may want to meet him.
Yeah, no, I think I do. So regarding Send Hunger Packing, can you speak a little bit about its history? I mean, obviously there's some information online, but like including like when it began. But is there anything else that you would like to speak to?
Yeah, and it goes to what I was talking about before, that when people drive through West Windsor or look at the statistics for West Windsor, they think it's a community where there are not families in need. Mm-hmm. And when you look at statistics of Trenton, people say, oh, there are a huge population of people who are on SNAP and on any type of social service programs. And then people always point to Princeton and say, well, Princeton has a need and they have housing needs, and that's true. But the population here does too. And for a few years, I had been raising money and supporting the Send Hunger Packing in Princeton because I think it's a great program. And then I had to check myself and say, why aren't I looking at the needs of the families in the West Windsor Plainsboro School District? And when I did the research, I found that there were 100, maybe more, of the families that would need a program like this. And so I went to Mercer Street Friends, which has that program. And at first they were reticent to add another program to their portfolio because they have Send Hunger Packing programs in Princeton and Trenton and maybe Lawrenceville. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you raise the money, we will allow you to bring the program in. And then I met with the superintendent of the West Windsor School, and he said, thank you for coming here. You have no idea of the need. And that's when I put together other folks, a small group, and we raised enough money the first year in 2017, 2018 to start the program. And once you start that program, you realize that there's a need, and that need has only increased. And last February, well, actually, let's go back to last summer, when we started realizing that the numbers were going up and that there was other need. Doreen Gorelick said, why don't we have a little free pantry? And we said, oh, and I have a little free library in front of my house. And I said, wow, that's a really great idea. How are we going to do that? And we kind of worked through that and found a place. The West Windsor Arts Council let us put the little free pantry there. And we dedicated it last November. Fast forward to the January and February, and when even before COVID struck here, I was out of town and I emailed the mayor and said, what are we going to do about helping families when we're in lockdown? And no one here really was thinking about it. And I got back from a trip and I met with the West Windsor Health Department, and we talked about having donations for the little free pantry and moving that forward. And this is just a crossroads, really, because all of this came together at once. Mm-hmm. And so it just exacerbated the need of families in our area. And that's only increased since the spring. And what we did was we had collections and then distributed grocery cards. And what I and another person on the committee learned when we were handing out the cards as the families were coming through was that people were really appreciative, and there were people who had never thought they would be asking for help coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And we, as a program, the participants and the committee members, we have no idea who the families are. We're not allowed to know, and that's great. It's all done through the schools. But what we know is there is a need, and there's an increasing need in our town to help folks who are food insecure. So that's how it began and grew.
And are there any, so you mentioned the Arts Council, are there any other particular, and you also mentioned the mayor, any other particular organizations or individuals that have been particularly influential or helpful regarding Send Hunger Packing?
Yeah, and we have an incredible community, and I don't want to forget the folks who have been so helpful. First of all, the first mayor, Mayor Shin-Fouché, was really supportive, and now Mayor Marate is very supportive. So there's also, of course, Mercer Street Friends, and I mentioned Martin and Jatama. Connie Illengoven, who's a psychologist or psychiatrist, she was one of the first people that I worked with to have this program kind of move out. And Phyllis Stuhlmacher, who had been at Mercer Street Friends, also was very supportive in the beginning. Right now we have Elizabeth Chenera and the 2 Girl Scout troops and some of the Girl Scouts. Dia Patel, who is working on her gold project. Boy Scout Troop 40 has been really helpful in some of the food collection, food drives over the last few years, and at Martin Luther King Day. Especially Prana, I don't exactly know how to pronounce the last name, Mabawaska, and his mother Suparna. He's doing his Eagle Scout project, helping. He did a PowerPoint that we presented to one of the local owners of land to see if we can put a second Little Free Pantry up. Dr. David Fenster, the Ephraim Books from the Senior Center, and Donna Fusatella, and Yame Wang, who was also instrumental in starting this group, Janice Todd, and some of the council members, Andrea Mandel and Sonia Gauss. So yeah, it really is a community support group, and then there are some committee members, Doreen Gorelick and Carol Schwartz. There are just so many people who come and help, and yeah, it's really quite nice.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear all the whole litany of people. It's a lot. That's not nice to hear that many people are involved in this project and this initiative really.
And I should also, and I've forgotten to mention St. David's Church, because we did the donations through there, and Prince of Peace has also been helpful. I really did want to make this a community program so that everyone understands what they didn't really fully understand a few years ago, which is that there are many families in this area that are in need. And I like to compare it and contrast it with Princeton, where Princeton has their housing segregated in certain areas, and all of our housing, affordable housing, is integrated in the community. So no one would really know as they're driving through this town where our affordable housing units are. That's the benefit. It's also, the stereotype that, oh, West Windsor has no need, when we actually do.
I was going to say it's I'm certain that the statistical affluence of West Windsor is one of the drivers in terms of why people don't recognize the need. But that's actually a really good point that I never considered, is the anti-silver lining of the integrated, housing developments is that.
But it's only that, and that's what makes
Yes.
West Windsor such a really warm place. I think to a large extent, I don't really think, at least with having my children, I don't really think they ever thought of status things, like if some people have all this and other people don't. It was never even in their minds, and it was just where I grew up on Long Island, it was very much status oriented. I didn't see that here, and that I thought was really remarkable in the way the kids grew up.
Now, in terms of the Little Free Pantry, I know I didn't actually send you this question, so
That's okay.
But the sizing of the pantries, because they're called Little Free Pantries, is there any particular reason why they are sized the way that they are?
Probably because you don't want to have it stocked with too much at any one time. And also it has to do with where you're placing it. Most of them are placed in, they're not huge because they're on someone's property. Usually whether it's a institution, an educational institution or religious institution, in our case, an arts council, or what we're trying to do is put it near a community center in one of the housing areas with affordable housing units. So the size has to do with the parcel of land that you can put it on. And you really don't want it to get too big because you want to keep it neat. And one of the questions was, well, is it going to be messy? Are people going to leave things on the ground? And we've had no problems.
I mean, that's great to hear. Actually, that's a pretty good transition. What are your metrics of success relative to Send Hunger Packing and the Little Free Pantry?
The measure of success for Send Hunger Packing was after the first year or two, getting feedback from the guidance counselors and the teachers that it was making a difference. And once we knew it was making a difference, we knew the students who were able to come to school fed on Monday morning were able to concentrate and do their schoolwork. And that was the success. And we know that the program works. It was not a new program. I mean, it had been in other places. So we knew that it was a good program, an easy way to make an impact in our district in ways that would not raise any political flags. It was kind of like godmother and apple pie. You want to do something that is going to make a difference in a nice and understated way.
Sure.
We have no idea who the families were, and it didn't matter to us who, just mattered that we were going to be helping people. In terms of the Little Free Pantry, we know that food is taken out, people put food in. The motto is take what you need, leave what you can, and it's worked. So we don't know the extent. I mean, I have not kept track of the amount. I suppose if I were a bean counter, I would have counted the number of things that we put in and how, but no, I haven't done that.
I was going to say it's probably hard to measure the the refresh rate or whatever you would call it for the
exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned that that there are plans in the works to install a second Little Free Pantry in West Windsor. Are there any other? Well, actually, before I get to that, so there are plans to expand within West Windsor, but how can Send Hunger Packing and Little Free Pantry be emulated elsewhere? I mean, obviously there are initiatives similar to it in Trenton and other places, but is there kind of a model for places like West Windsor where the need is not as visible?
I couldn't tell you where. I couldn't tell you that. There are places where it would probably be important to have something like that. But I've never done the research for other areas, and And one of the pieces about West Windsor is we don't have a food pantry that is run by the town. Plainsboro actually has a pantry. West Windsor does not. The Jewish Family and Children's Services has a pantry that has requirements for it, eligibility requirements to use it, as do most food pantries. The one thing that I will say about the Little Free Pantry, no restrictions, open 24/7. So that's the benefit of it. But I don't really know where, else there would be a need. I think that many communities could avail themselves of that. College campuses.
Were there any barriers or that happened when you were, or any kind of like unexpected occurrences that happened when you or anyone else was involved in Send Hunger Packing and Little Free Pantry were undertaking these initiatives, that anyone in the future who wants to undertake something similar should expect?
For the Little Free Pantry, it's a matter of finding a partner who will allow you to place the unit on their property. And my suggestion is that it be closer to folks who can actually walk to the unit for it to be accessible. Ours being on Alexander Road is accessible to anyone who has a car, sure, anyone who's in the area. I am looking to place a second one in a community where there are more affordable housing units integrated into the housing, so that folks who can avail themselves of the food more easily.
Okay. Now to end us off, one of the, as I mentioned to you before, one of the reasons that Voices of West Windsor is being undertaken is just because the town has changed so much in the last 40 years, 30 years, and that it's good to get that change and that current representation of the township today down for the purpose of historical research in the future. So where do you see West Windsor and Send Hunger Packing in 30 and 40 years?
Well, my hope is that there would be no need, of course.
Yeah.
What do I see? I don't know, 30 or 40 years. I'm trying to think. Maybe we'd all be eating microbiotic food delivered by robots. I don't know.
Okay.
Right? Curbside delivery.
Sure.
Otherwise, I don't know where this program would be.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
This is really fun, and I really like learning about the history of West Windsor. That is really spectacular, and I hope that you really push that out.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.